I killed my own wife. The words escaped my lips before I could even stop them. I could still hear the ringing in my ears, the silence that followed as I stood in the middle of the sterile, cold morgue. The body of the woman I had once loved was lying before me, her face pale, her body still, but she wasn't dead. Not in the way they'd all told me. Not in the way I'd buried her. I didn't know who had been lying, her, or everyone around me. But I knew one thing with absolute certainty: this wasn't the end of her story. It was only the beginning of mine. 6 months ago, she was dead. A fatal car accident. The world had pitied me, wrapped me in sympathy, and thrown money at me, as though her death had been some grand tragedy. And for weeks, I had mourned. I had believed it, every lie, every tear, every false funeral. But today, something had changed. I had received an anonymous tip that tore apart the perfect facade. The funeral had been staged. The body in the morgue was a dummy. She was alive, and she had disappeared with everything. My company. My money. My name. I looked at the body again, my throat tightening. This was her final trick, wasn't it? Make me think she was dead, so I would spiral into nothingness. To see me crumble. To watch me lose it all while she secretly walked away into the night. But I wasn't going to play along any longer. I wasn't going to mourn a death that had never happened. No, this wasn't the end. This was only the beginning of my revenge. Her lies had destroyed me. Now it was my turn to return the favor. I remember the first time I saw her, Marissa. She was sitting across from me in a coffee shop, looking as out of place in the crowded corner as she did in my life. Her dark hair cascaded over her shoulders, and her smile, that brilliant, seemingly innocent smile, caught my attention. I was never one to believe in love at first sight, but with her, it was as if time had paused for a brief, fleeting moment. At the time, I was just a regular guy, running a small but growing tech startup, working day and night to make ends meet. I wasn't rich, but I had ambition. And somewhere in the midst of all that, Marissa found me. She was beautiful, sharp, and intoxicating. She had a way of making you believe you were the most important person in the room. To me, she was my dream come true. We started dating shortly after that coffee shop encounter, and things moved quickly. I should have known better. It was too perfect, too easy. But Marissa had this way of making you feel like you were her everything, like you were the one who had unlocked the key to her heart. I was swept away in her world of charm and affection. It felt like love, or so I convinced myself. As we got more serious, the cracks began to appear. Slowly, at first. Tiny things, like her disappearing for hours at a time, saying she was working, or visiting family. I let it slide, attributing it to her busy schedule, her high-powered job in marketing. She was driven, successful, and I admired that. She had dreams, big dreams, and I supported them. She always said we were a team. That we were building something together. And for a time, we were. We got married after 2 years of dating. The wedding was beautiful, everything I had ever wanted. Her family was rich, established, and had connections. I, on the other hand, had just begun to taste success. But it was enough for her. She said she loved me for my heart, not my wealth. I was naive enough to believe that. After we married, things began to change. The small cracks turned into full-fledged fissures. She became more distant, always distracted, always busy. It started with simple requests for space. A few hours here and there, or late-night meetings that ran until morning. I told myself it was just a phase, that she was still getting used to being married. But deep down, I started to notice her slipping away from me. The distance between us grew, and I couldn't quite figure out why. Then came the money. My company began to take off. Investors were interested, the market was ripe for what we were doing, and I was starting to make a name for myself. Suddenly, I wasn't the struggling entrepreneur anymore. I was the guy everyone wanted to know. The dinners, the parties, the deals, life was changing fast, and so was Marissa. At first, I was elated. I thought success would bring us closer, make our relationship stronger. But instead, it made me blind to the changes happening around me. She wasn't there to celebrate my victories. Instead, she was always on her phone, always occupied with something I couldn't see. We started to fight. "I just need some time for myself," she would say, her voice soft but firm. "You're getting too consumed with work." "I'm doing this for us," I would respond. "I'm building something for our future." But that future wasn't something she wanted anymore. The more success I had, the more I noticed her pulling away, until finally, she became a stranger in our home. The woman I had married was no longer the woman I knew. She would leave for hours, sometimes days. I began to question her. I couldn't help it. Every time she came back, there was a coldness in her eyes. I would ask her about it, but she would dismiss me with a quick kiss and a promise that everything was fine. But it wasn't fine. I knew it wasn't. My suspicions grew. I hired a private investigator, only to find that she had been meeting with someone else, someone I didn't know. My mind raced with the possibilities. What was going on? I confronted her once, demanding answers. She looked at me, calm, almost detached, and said something that shattered everything I had believed. "Why do you care? You're not the man I fell in love with. You're too busy chasing success to notice me slipping away." That was the first real crack in our marriage, the first time I saw the mask slip. It wasn't just the money or the distance anymore, it was the realization that she had been looking for something more, something I could never give her. And I could feel that deep down she had already made her decision. But nothing prepared me for what came next. The day I came home to find an empty house, the locks changed, and a note that simply read, "I'm sorry. This is better for both of us." I thought it was the end. I thought I would never see her again. But I was wrong. So wrong. As I stood there in the morgue, staring at the body that wasn't her, a cold realization hit me like a punch to the gut. Marissa wasn't gone. She hadn't just left me, she had faked her death. She had made me believe she was gone, using my grief to cover her tracks. What kind of woman does that? What kind of betrayal is this? And why? I didn't know the answers, but I was sure of one thing, would find out. I would unravel this twisted game she had played, and when I did, she would pay for every single lie. Our marriage had been a lie. Our love had been a lie. And now, I was ready to make her feel the same pain I had felt. The time for sorrow was over. The time for revenge had begun. I thought I knew betrayal. I thought I had already experienced the worst of it when Marissa left me. I stood at the empty house, feeling the raw ache of abandonment, staring at the note she left behind. But that was nothing compared to what came next. Nothing could have prepared me for the horror of what I was about to uncover. It was the letter that tipped me off. Not just any letter, it arrived on a cold, dull Thursday morning, slipped under my door without a name, no return address. At first, I thought it was some kind of twisted joke, someone playing on my already fragile state. But as I read it, my blood ran cold. "She's alive. I know you've been looking for her. You won't find her, not easily. She's hiding in plain sight, and you've been so blind to it. But I know where she is." It was signed only with a symbol, a simple drawing of an eye. I read those words over and over, a knot tightening in my stomach. The implications were staggering. Marissa was alive. But not only that, someone knew where she was. Someone was watching me. I couldn't believe it. I had thought I was the only one left in the dark. That my search was a personal, isolated obsession. But now, I realized there were forces at work, dark, hidden forces, that had been manipulating me from the start. But who was this person? And why were they helping me? Desperation clawed at me. My mind was racing, overwhelmed by the fear and the mounting confusion. My wife, the woman who had supposedly died, was still out there. And she wasn't hiding like a fugitive. She was playing a far deeper game, one that had entangled me without me even knowing it. I went back to my office that same day, barely able to focus on anything but the letter. But then I saw it. The file. I had forgotten all about it, buried under piles of invoices and proposals. It was a document I had stumbled upon months ago when I was going through some old financial statements. At the time, I had brushed it aside as a mistake, a discrepancy in the numbers. But now, with the letter fresh in my mind, I couldn't ignore it any longer. The file was a series of bank transfers, all tied to one specific account. An account that had been established in my name, but not by me. And the transfers had been made every month, quietly, without any real explanation. But the most telling thing. The recipient of these transfers was none other than Marissa. At first, I thought I was mistaken, that I had somehow misinterpreted the numbers. But as I dug deeper, it became clear. Every single penny of the money I had made in my business, the wealth I had spent years building, was being siphoned off into an account I had never authorized. I staggered backward, my chest tightening as a new understanding began to dawn on me. This wasn't just some random act of betrayal. This was something far more insidious. Marissa had been manipulating me from the very beginning, not just emotionally, but financially as well. She had been planning her escape for months, maybe even longer, and I had been the unwitting pawn in her game. As I processed this revelation, the room seemed to spin. How could she have done this? How could she have played me for a fool, using my trust to drain me dry? But then, the answer came to me like a slap in the face. She hadn't just left me, she had taken everything. The money, the company, and now, my sense of self-worth. But it wasn't just about the money anymore. It wasn't just about the business or the betrayal of trust. No, there was something far more sinister at play here, something I wasn't ready for. As I stared at the document in disbelief, the phone rang. I picked it up without thinking. Hello. Do you know where she is? The voice on the other end was deep, deliberate, with a hint of amusement. It was a man, but his tone was eerily familiar, like I had heard it before. I froze, the blood draining from my face. Who is this? You've been looking in all the wrong places, he continued, ignoring my question. She's not hiding from you. She's right where you left her. You've been the perfect distraction all along. My heart skipped a beat. My mind raced, trying to comprehend his words. What do you mean? Where is she? What are you talking about? There was a pause before the voice spoke again, this time laced with cold venom. She's playing you. She always has. But you haven't figured out the game yet. I felt a cold shiver run down my spine. Who was this person? And what did they know about her that I didn't? The pieces of the puzzle were falling into place, but the more I learned, the less I understood. Marissa hadn't just faked her death to escape. No, she had orchestrated a plan so intricate, so devilishly clever, that even I, her husband, had become nothing more than a pawn in it. The line went dead, and I was left standing there, my head spinning with the realization that I was being watched, manipulated, and outplayed at every turn. But it didn't matter. She had crossed the line. She had stolen from me, lied to me, and now she was hiding behind a web of deceit I couldn't even begin to untangle. But one thing was certain, the stakes had changed. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about survival. I would find her, and when I did, nothing would stop me from making her pay for every single betrayal. The days following the phone call were a blur. Every moment was consumed by thoughts of Marissa and the unexpected betrayal I had just uncovered. But as I delved deeper into the mystery, I began to realize something more disturbing. This wasn't just about her. There were other players involved in this twisted game, and I was only just beginning to see the full extent of the web she had spun. It all started with an email. The message came from an anonymous address, and like the letter before it, it contained cryptic words that sent a chill down my spine. The subject line read, "The truth about your business." I opened the email, my hands trembling, not knowing what to expect. The message itself was short, but the implications were enormous. You've been played. Your company. It's not yours. It never was. You were the perfect front. They've been using you to clean their money. I can give you everything you need to know. But you need to trust me. The email was signed off with another symbol, this time, a broken chain. It felt like a punch to the gut. My heart raced as I read it over and over again, trying to make sense of it. They've been using you to clean their money. What the hell did that mean? Who was using me? Was Marissa involved in something deeper, something darker than I could have imagined? The following days became a whirlwind of paranoia. I couldn't trust anyone. I started to look at every person around me, every colleague, every friend, even my own family, as a potential enemy. Everyone had become a suspect in the increasingly complex puzzle I was trying to piece together. I decided to meet the person behind the email. The details were sketchy, but it was the only lead I had. We arranged to meet at a quiet, dimly lit bar on the edge of town. I went there, expecting answers but bracing myself for more lies. When I arrived, I spotted the figure immediately. A man, mid-40s, wearing a dark coat and a cap. His face was partially obscured by shadows, but I could tell by his posture that he was aware of everything going on around him. I approached him cautiously, every nerve in my body on edge. "Are you the one who emailed me?" I asked, my voice low and sharp. He nodded, slowly. "You don't know who you're dealing with. Marissa is part of something much bigger than you think. And if you keep digging, you're going to wish you didn't." I sat down across from him, my curiosity piqued, but there was a coldness in my chest, a growing sense of dread. "What are you talking about? Who's behind this? Why is Marissa involved?" The man leaned forward, his eyes glinting with something between fear and excitement. "You don't understand, do you? She's always been the mastermind. You've been too blinded by your love for her to see it." I shook my head. "That's impossible. She's just a woman. My wife. We had a life together. This doesn't make sense." He smirked, almost pitying me. "Oh, it makes sense, all right. She's been running the whole show. You were just the perfect scapegoat, the perfect distraction. While you built your business, she built her empire on the side, using your resources as a cover. You thought you were doing it for both of you? No. She was using you to fund her own plans, her own escape." My mind was spinning. My head was pounding as I tried to process what he was saying. But why? Why would she do this to me? I loved her. We were a team. "That's the problem," the man said, his voice taking on a colder edge. "You never were a team. You were a tool. You still are." I recoiled as though he had struck me. "No. You're lying. This has to be some kind of setup. Marissa wouldn't." "Wouldn't what?" "Take everything from you. Destroy you without a second thought. She doesn't care about you. Not like you think. You were always just a means to an end." The truth of his words hit me like a freight train. I wanted to deny it, to walk away from the table, but deep down, I knew he was right. There had always been a distance between us, a wall that she had built to keep me out. I had never seen it. Never understood it. But now it was all so clear. The man stood up abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. "You need to get out of this. Before it's too late. Marissa isn't just some woman you loved. She's part of a syndicate. A powerful group that's been laundering money through your business. If you keep going, if you keep digging, you'll be on their radar. And you won't survive the game. I stood there, frozen, as he left without another word. My mind was racing, spinning out of control. Everything I thought I knew about Marissa, about my life, had been a lie. She wasn't just faking her death, she was orchestrating something much darker, something beyond me. But what did this mean for me now? Could I just walk away? Could I stop the investigation and pretend I hadn't heard the truth? I knew I couldn't. Not anymore. I had to find out everything. I had to expose her for what she truly was. For what they all were. That's when it hit me, my business wasn't the only thing Marissa had taken from me. She had also taken my trust, my peace of mind, my identity. But there was something even more devastating, she had taken my sense of self-worth. And now, with the clock ticking and the threat of a dangerous syndicate looming over me, I had no choice but to push forward. But as I was about to leave the bar, a figure emerged from the shadows, someone I hadn't expected. It was Ben, my closest business partner. "Did you really think you could get away with this?" he said, his voice low and dangerous. "You've been looking for answers in all the wrong places. But the truth is, you're part of this mess too. And it's too late for you to walk away." I froze. Ben. My best friend. My partner. He, too, had been hiding something from me. Something huge. And that was when I realized the final, terrifying truth: the betrayal ran deeper than I had ever imagined. The world felt like it was collapsing around me. Betrayed by the woman I loved, used by everyone I trusted, and now faced with the realization that even my closest business partner, Ben, had been involved in this twisted game. I had been living in a nightmare, but now I could finally see the truth. The fog had lifted, and clarity had arrived with a sharp, cutting edge. Marissa had orchestrated this entire tragedy. But she wasn't just some mastermind pulling strings from the shadows. No. She was part of something far bigger than I could have ever imagined. And I was going to make her pay for every lie, every betrayal. The time for grief, for mourning the woman I thought I knew, was over. Now, it was time for retribution. I spent the next few weeks meticulously planning my revenge. I wasn't going to charge in blindly, fueled by rage. I knew better than that. This had to be calculated, precise, and methodical. I would make sure she felt every ounce of pain that I had endured. And I would do it in a way that would make her regret ever crossing me. The first step was to get closer to Ben. My former best friend. The man who had stabbed me in the back. He had been the one to help Marissa manipulate me, the one who had supported her behind my back. It was time to use him, make him think I was still blind to the truth, make him believe I was lost in my grief. I contacted him the day after my meeting with the mysterious informant. I needed him to think that I was spiraling out of control, that I had no idea what was really going on. I sent him a text, simple and vague: "We need to talk. It's bad. I don't know what to do anymore." Ben called me immediately. "Hey, man. What's going on?" he asked, his voice pretending to be concerned. "I don't know. I'm a mess," I said, my voice shaky, on purpose. "Marissa, it's all falling apart. I need you. I need your help. I don't know who to trust anymore." "Of course, I'm here," he said quickly, without hesitation. "Let's meet up. We'll figure it out. I've got your back, always." Good. I needed him to be loyal to me, just long enough to get what I needed. I set up a meeting, and when I saw him at the bar, I let my emotional facade drop. I allowed the grief, the desperation, the pain to seep through. It worked perfectly. Ben bought it. He was my friend again, the one who always had my back. I played my role, asking him for advice, letting him believe that I still believed in our friendship. But behind my calm exterior, my mind was calculating every possible move. I knew that if I could get Ben on my side, get him to trust me again, then I could use him to bring Marissa down. He was the key. We spent the night talking, reminiscing about old times. Ben was relaxed, comfortable, thinking everything was back to normal. He had no idea that I was about to turn the tables on him. By the end of the night, I had him in my grip. He didn't even know it. Step 2 was infiltrating the syndicate, getting to the heart of Marissa's operation. The more I learned, the more I realized that this wasn't just some petty criminal group. It was far more dangerous than I had anticipated. The money laundering, the shell companies, the connections. This was a well-oiled machine, and Marissa was at the center of it all. I knew where her weaknesses lay. The people closest to her were the ones she could trust the least. And it wasn't just about financial loss. This was about exposing her, making her understand that no matter how many people she manipulated, how many lives she destroyed, her actions would have consequences. She couldn't run forever. I managed to get access to a secure server, an encrypted file Marissa thought no one could access. It contained everything, every transaction, every deal, every connection. I had to be careful, though. If I was caught with this information, it would be my death sentence. But I wasn't afraid anymore. Fear had no hold on me. What I had was determination. The file was a goldmine. It contained names, powerful people, influential figures in the criminal world. Politicians, businessmen, and even law enforcement officers who had turned a blind eye to her operations. The people who were complicit in her deception. It was a network of lies that stretched far beyond anything I had imagined. I began to leak the information, one piece at a time, carefully crafting the narrative. A text here, an email there, anonymous tips to journalists. Every leak I made brought Marissa closer to exposure. Her perfect world of secrecy was crumbling, and I could see her growing panic as she realized what was happening. Step 3 was the most dangerous part of all, confronting Marissa. I had made sure she had no way out. I had planned this meeting for weeks. I had lured her to a secluded location, a place where no one could overhear us, no one could stop what was about to unfold. This was the moment I had been preparing for, the final showdown. When she walked into the room, she looked just as beautiful as ever. But there was something different about her now. The confidence, the control she had always exuded, was gone. She was nervous, unsure. Her eyes darted around the room, and when they met mine, I could see the fear in them. She didn't know how to react at first. She took a step back, looking at me as though I was a stranger. "What is this? What do you want from me?" I smiled. "What I want is simple. You're going to pay for everything, Marissa. For the lies, for the betrayal. You're going to answer for everything you've done." She laughed, a cold, hollow sound. "You think you've won? You think you can take me down? I'm untouchable. You'll never have anything on me." I shook my head. "You've underestimated me, just like you always did. You've been playing this game for far too long, but it's over now. You've made your last mistake." I pulled out the file, the one with all the information I had been leaking. Her eyes widened as she recognized the names, the connections. She knew what was coming next. How did you get this?" she whispered, her voice trembling for the first time in our relationship. I leaned in, my voice low and deliberate. "You made a mistake when you thought I wouldn't find out. You underestimated me. But it's too late now. You've been exposed. The whole world is going to know who you really are." She took a step back, her face pale. "You won't do this. You can't. You'll ruin everything." I smiled, the weight of my revenge settling over me like a cold cloak. "No. You ruined everything. I'm just finishing what you started." The power had shifted. The woman who had once controlled me was now at my mercy. And it felt good. It felt right. As I left the building, my heart felt lighter than it had in months. The darkness, the weight of her betrayal, had been lifted. But the satisfaction wasn't in seeing her exposed. It wasn't in the destruction of her empire. It was in the realization that I had taken back control. I had been the one manipulated, the one betrayed. But now, I was the one who held the power. I watched as Marissa's empire crumbled, piece by piece. Her connections were arrested, her accounts frozen, her reputation tarnished beyond repair. Her name was Mud. And it was all because I had played the game better than she ever could have imagined. Every lie she had told, every person she had betrayed, had come back to haunt her. But the most satisfying part? It was seeing Ben, the man I had once trusted more than anyone, brought down with her. The authorities found the evidence linking him to her operations, and he was arrested. He looked at me, his eyes full of disbelief, and I just smirked. No more lies, no more secrets. For the first time in years, I felt free. And though I knew there would be more challenges ahead, more battles to fight, I was ready. Because I had learned one thing: when you've been betrayed to the point of destruction, you either let it consume you, or you rise from it. And I had risen. The dust had settled, but the silence that followed felt heavier than anything I had experienced before. It wasn't just the weight of Marissa's fall, or the satisfaction of seeing her empire crumble to the ground, it was the realization that I had come out on top. As I watched her face, the face of the woman who had once meant everything to me, flicker with a mix of fear, anger, and disbelief, I realized something chilling. This was the moment when I could finally let go of all the anger, the hurt, the years of betrayal. I didn't need to hold on to it anymore. Her defeat wasn't about vengeance, it was about reclaiming my own life, my own identity. The world had turned on her. News outlets ran stories about the money laundering scheme that she had masterminded. The names she had protected for years were out in the open. Her partners were arrested. Her connections severed. She had been reduced to nothing, her empire laid bare for all to see. And as for Ben, my once trusted partner, he faced the consequences of his own betrayal. His name, just like hers, would forever be tarnished. No longer could he hide in the shadows, pretending to be a loyal friend. The law had caught up with him, and the final blow to our friendship was now complete. But it wasn't just about them anymore. It was about me. I had been nothing more than a pawn in their game, a tool for their plans. But no longer. I had played them both. I had turned the tables, exposed their darkest secrets, and reclaimed everything I had lost. There was a sense of closure, yes. But there was also something more. A realization that I couldn't stop here. As the weight of Marissa's fall finally sank in, the first stirrings of a new path began to form in my mind. My revenge had been sweet, but it wasn't enough. There was more to be done. More stories to uncover. More lives to take back. As I sat there, reflecting on everything I had been through, a thought crossed my mind. What would happen now? What if there were others like Marissa out there? People who had spent years hiding behind masks of love, deceit, and power. People who thought they could manipulate others without consequences. I realized then that the world was filled with people like Marissa, calculating, merciless, and manipulative. And there was a part of me that wanted to take this further. To continue this war against betrayal, to expose the darkness hiding beneath the perfect facades of the wealthy and powerful. But that path would require patience, cunning, and most importantly, strategy. I had learned from my mistakes. I had learned that revenge wasn't just about recklessness, it was about precision. It was about making sure every move counted, every step taken with the intent to destroy those who thought they could escape their sins. And I couldn't ignore the feeling that Marissa wasn't the only one who had orchestrated my downfall. No. There were others, too. Others who had been watching, waiting for me to slip, waiting for me to make my move. As I prepared to leave the empty building where I had finally confronted her, my mind raced with possibilities. What if Marissa had been just a pawn in a much larger game? What if the syndicate she worked for was just the tip of the iceberg? I had no idea what I was walking into, but I couldn't stop myself now. I had taken down one, but how many more were there? It wasn't just about Marissa anymore. It was about taking down a system that preyed on the weak, the trusting. It was about bringing down the people who thought they were untouchable. And in doing so, I realized that I was no longer the man who had been manipulated. No, I had become something else entirely. A force. A reckoning. As I walked away from the wreckage of my old life, I couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning. I had played the game and won. But there were more games to play. More pieces to move. More enemies to take down. And I would stop at nothing. You think I'm done? You think the story ends here? Think again. The world I've stepped into is full of players much darker than Marissa, much more powerful than her syndicate. And I won't stop until I've exposed every last one of them. But there's more to uncover. There are pieces of my past I still need to face. And those who think they can hide will soon find out, you can't run from the consequences forever. Stay tuned. This is far from over. If you want to know how deep the rabbit hole goes, don't miss the next chapter. Hit subscribe, like, and turn on the notification bell, because the next betrayal might be closer than you think. See you in the next one.